Let's kick things off with our first story of the day, and this one's personal. Things are heating up ahead of UFC 315, and Garry is not happy with Jack Della Maddalena's recent comments involving his son. During Fight Week, Garry was officially designated as the backup fighter for the welterweight clash between Jack Della Maddalena and Belal Muhammad. But didn't just sit on the sidelines. He made his presence very known. In what he thought was a lighthearted mind game, Garry had his young son offering Jack M&Ms throughout the week. That's right, actual M&Ms. According to ChatGPT, M&Ms are among Jack's favorite candies, and decided to use that knowledge in a clever attempt to test Jack's discipline. He even jokingly placed M&Ms on the scale, hoping the sugary temptation might just mess with Jack's weight cut. It was cheeky, strategic, and meant to be playful, classic pre-fight banter, or so thought. When asked about the M&M stunt, during the pre-fight press conference, Jack fired back with a comment that many feel crossed the line. "I don't think that's actually Ian's son, but I don't like M&Ms." The crowd chuckled, but Garry did not. Garry was furious. He responded quickly, calling the comment immature and completely unnecessary. "He's had one finish in his last 4 fights," Garry fired back. "Now he's out here telling me to hit the gym and work on my power? Please." He got beat up bad by Belal. And Belal isn't even close to the striker I am. I'll bend his nose backward the way it should be. Garry made it clear the candy stunt wasn't disrespectful. It was just a joke. "My son giving him candy was a bit of banter. Harmless. I'm not flying across the world to play celebrity. I'm here to fight. That's why I show up. That's why I stay ready." He also made a bold prediction. "If Jack ever becomes champion, I'll be the one to take that belt." Garry ended with a final jab. The joke was just comedy, a kid saying, "Eat these so my dad can fight." That's funny. For Jack to twist that and bring my son into it? That's low. It shows he's shaken. If he's this rattled outside the cage, imagine what happens when I'm in there with him. He's mentally weak. But me? I'll never stoop so low. I don't need to bring up his wife or kids. I'll step in, punch his mouth off, and take the belt. That's how I do business. Next up, another fighter who's not holding back. Justin Gaethje is fuming. Following the UFC's official announcement that Ilia Topuria will face Charles Oliveira for the vacant lightweight title, Justin Gaethje's team is not taking the news lightly. According to reports from the Anik and Florian podcast, Gaethje is feeling completely disrespected by the UFC's decision. Behind the scenes, he's made his frustration known. After suffering a brutal knockout loss to Max Holloway, Gaethje took a significant break from MMA, spending nearly 6 months away from training. During that time, he picked up golf. And according to those close to him, he didn't just play casually. He got really good, but no amount of time off or golf could dull the sting when he found out he was passed over for a title shot, especially in favor of Oliveira, someone he's already fought and lost to. As one podcast host put it, "I was with Justin a lot this week, and he was pissed." He definitely feels passed over in favor of Charles. His longtime manager, Ali Abdelaziz, is also reportedly pushing hard behind the scenes, demanding clarity from the UFC. They're not just asking for a title shot anymore, they want a guarantee that Gaethje is next in line. From their point of view, Justin has done more than enough to earn another crack at the lightweight title. He's been one of the division's most dangerous, exciting, and consistent contenders for years, facing names like Khabib, Poirier, Oliveira, Ferguson, Chandler, and recently, Holloway. And here's the kicker. Oliveira is coming off a loss to Islam Makhachev. No win streak, no fresh momentum. Meanwhile, Gaethje just fought in one of the most thrilling bouts of the year. And despite the loss, many believe he deserves another shot more than Oliveira. Bottom line, Team Gaethje wants answers, and more importantly, respect. They want the UFC to guarantee that Justin is next for a title shot after Topuria vs. Oliveira, no matter who wins. Their message is loud and clear. If respect isn't given, it will be taken. And if you know Justin Gaethje, you know he's not one to stay quiet for long. Finally, on to another major headline in the MMA world. Michael Bisping has stepped in and made his stance absolutely clear on the growing tension between "to be continued." Let's move on to another fighter-stirring headlines. This time, it's about who isn't fighting. Former middleweight champ and current UFC analyst Michael Bisping has weighed in on the recent drama surrounding Jiří Procházka and Alex Pereira, who both reportedly turned down a fight with Magomed Ankalaev. Ankalaev went public recently, claiming that top contenders were dodging him, and Bisping didn't hold back on his podcast. "I don't blame Jiří, and I don't blame Pereira either, to be honest," Bisping said bluntly. According to Bisping, this isn't about fear or ducking, it's about timing, risk, and smart career decisions. He emphasized that the UFC had been trying to book Ankalaev a fight for weeks. With UFC 317 still 5 weeks out, there was technically enough time for a full camp. Still, Bisping defended the decisions made by both Procházka and Pereira. He specifically addressed Jiří's situation. Jiří just lost. He's been beaten twice by Pereira. If he gets another title shot and loses again, he might not get another one. In today's UFC landscape, that's a serious concern. 1 or 2 losses can drastically alter a fighter's trajectory, delaying title opportunities for years. In many cases, these choices define entire careers. Then, Bisping turned his focus to Magomed Ankalaev, and he didn't sugarcoat it. He's huge. His style is awkward and dangerous. I wouldn't necessarily take that fight either. That's a serious statement from someone like Bisping, who's fought some of the most dangerous men in the sport. Ankalaev represents what many call a high-risk, low-reward matchup. He doesn't talk trash, he doesn't generate major pay-per-view numbers, but he's a highly skilled, deceptively powerful fighter, with a grinding, suffocating style that can derail even the most explosive opponents. That's a nightmare matchup for champions like Pereira or former champs like Jiří, who are now focused on legacy fights, big money bouts, and strategic career moves. So when Ankalaev accused Pereira and Procházka of ducking him, Bisping offered some much-needed perspective. It's not fear, it's strategy. And in today's UFC, strategy is everything. He wrapped it up by saying, "It's not personal, it's just business. These guys are picking their shots. And right now, Ankalaev just isn't the right one. Until Ankalaev becomes truly undeniable, he may continue to struggle to find willing opponents." Next up, Sean Strickland is making headlines again. And as usual, it's not just for what he does inside the cage, but for what he chooses not to do. Strickland recently turned down a fight with rising middleweight contender Caio Borralho, but his reason had nothing to do with fear or rankings. In a new interview with Helen Yee, Strickland gave fans a rare look at the personal side of fight negotiations. When asked about what's next, Strickland said, "I wanted to fight that RDR kid, but he got booked. That kid is Reinier de Ridder, the former One Championship double champ who recently signed with the UFC." Strickland had hoped to square off against him, likely viewing it as a high-profile clash, especially given de Ridder's world-class grappling. But that matchup didn't materialize, as de Ridder was booked to face Robert Whittaker instead. With RDR off the table, UFC matchmaker Mick Maynard offered Strickland a bout with Caio Borralho, an undefeated Brazilian prospect with crisp striking and slick jiu-jitsu. A very real threat, but Strickland declined. And this time, it wasn't business. It was personal. "Mick wanted me to fight him. Such a great guy," Strickland said. "But I said no." "Well, we both kind of said no." "Why?" "I know him. I know his wife. I know his family." In a sport built on brutal rivalries and competitive hunger, that kind of answer is almost unheard of. It wasn't about fear or ego. It was about respect and boundaries. Strickland didn't want to step into the cage and try to destroy someone he considers almost family. It's an unusual move, but it shows a rare glimpse of humanity in a sport often defined by violence and showmanship. In the same interview, Strickland also gave his take on the upcoming middleweight clash between Dricus du Plessis and Khamzat Chimaev, a fight with massive title implications. Having trained and even sparred with Chimaev, Strickland shared a sharp take. "They can grapple. Someone like me, I've been doing this for years. I can counter-wrestle and grapple them." He believes the key to beating Khamzat is to neutralize his wrestling. "If Dricus can do that, he wins hands down," Strickland said. "It's just a matter of whether he can stop and counter that. Wrestling." According to Strickland, the blueprint to beat Chimaev exists. The question is whether du Plessis can execute it under pressure. Ian Garry speaks out. "Shavkat doesn't deserve the title shot, yet let's circle back to Ian Garry, who's making headlines once again. This time, not for a fight, but for his take on the welterweight title picture. Despite suffering a unanimous decision loss to Shavkat Rakhmonov last December, Garry is pushing back hard on the idea that Shavkat should be next in line for a title shot, and he's not mincing words. In a recent appearance on the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani, Garry laid it out with conviction. "When you look at the welterweight division right now, I'd argue it's the most exciting it's ever been. 100%. Just look at the depth of talent. You've got a new generation coming in, guys under 30 who are on an absolute tear. And he's not wrong. The division is brimming with elite young talent. Names like Shavkat Rakhmonov, Jack Della Maddalena, Sean Brady, and Garry himself are surging through the ranks." Ian emphasized that what makes this division special is the perfect storm of youth, hunger, and raw talent. That's exactly why, in his eyes, no one should be fast-tracked, not even Shavkat. "I was there as the backup. The UFC knows I'm game. I've shown I'll step in against anyone. I've already proved that," he said, referring to his role as the official backup fighter for the recent bout between Jack Della Maddalena and Belal Muhammad. His willingness to stay ready, travel, and make weight without a guarantee of fighting is something he feels should be recognized. To him, that kind of dedication should factor into the title conversation. He also pointed to the current momentum of other contenders. "Look, Bookie is going to run through Kamaru, and Sean Brady just beat Leon. We're all right there." Bookie is presumably Belal Muhammad, who's on the brink of a major career-defining fight. Then came the key quote, "I don't believe Shavkat should just come back and get that title shot. Not when the rest of us are still fighting and showing up." His point? Activity matters. Taking risks and staying in the mix should count. While Shavkat's undefeated record and elite skill set are undeniable, Garry argues that recent activity and contributions to the division should weigh just as heavily. But he ended with a dose of reality. Unfortunately, that's not always how things work. It's a nod to the politics of matchmaking, where marketability often outweighs merit. Still, Ian Garry is making sure his voice is heard loud and clear, and in a division this competitive, it might just make a difference. Chael Sonnen stunned by odds. Ilia Topuria, 370 against Charles Oliveira? That's insane. Now to one of the most surprising headlines of the week. The betting odds for Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira. When Chael Sonnen saw the line, he couldn't believe it. During a recent breakdown, Sonnen reacted to the shocking fact that Ilia Topuria is currently a 370 favorite over Charles Oliveira. Minus 370? That's insane. You could hear the disbelief in his voice, and frankly, a lot of fans and analysts agree. Sonnen laid out the case clearly. We're talking about Charles Oliveira, a former lightweight champion, a man with more submissions than anyone in UFC history. and someone who has finished Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, and Michael Chandler, and yet he's a heavy underdog. Even John Anik, one of the most respected voices in MMA, chimed in, revealing that Justin Gaethje himself was surprised by the odds. If a guy who's shared the Octagon with Charles thinks the numbers are off, maybe we should all be paying closer attention. So what's behind the odds maker's confidence? Ilia Topuria is red hot. He's young, explosive, undefeated, and coming off a dominant win over Alexander Volkanovski to claim the featherweight belt. His rise has been electric, but this fight against Oliveira will be his first at lightweight, and Charles is no tune-up fight. He's arguably one of the most dangerous finishers in the sport's history. This matchup begs the question, are we underestimating Charles Oliveira,